Welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to show you how to pour and finish these concrete steps that are on a steep slope. Please continue watching until the end because we're going to be explaining the entire detailed process on how we're going to do all of this. If you want to learn how to set forms and pour all kinds of concrete work with the proper finishing techniques, then you're in the best place here on YouTube, since that's all we do here at Eternal Rock Construction. Consider subscribing to our channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos that we'll be uploading. Here we have 10 steps that are 3 foot wide. It has a little landing here at the bottom. We already set all the forms on each side of the perimeter and each one of the steps with the proper reinforcement. And today we're going to go ahead and be pouring all of these steps. As you can tell, it's on a pretty steep of a slope to get down there to the bottom. And we decided to use a pump. There was really no access to get back over here, so the pump came in very handy so we can get all the concrete into all the areas that we need. So here we're basically just poured enough whatever we needed, and then from here we're just floating the concrete surface, cleaning up all of the areas around the forms and just making sure that we get the level of each step as close as we can. This is the results after we gave the first pass through on the steps. Now the concrete that we got delivered, it came in pretty wet, more wet than what we would want, but it is what it is and we just have to work with it. I guess this is pretty good because you'll learn, like, if you deal with this. I mean, we're going to show you how we handle this situation. So right here you can tell how wet all of that concrete came out, and we're just starting to work as needed, you know, depending on what the concrete allows us to do. At this point, the only thing that we can pretty much get done is floating each one of the steps. So, and we have all this excess water and slurry and cream and all that, so we're just removing all of the excess water and concrete that is in the way, just taking it outside of the area, and whatever's left, we're just making sure that we're floating each one of the steps. And we also clean all of the forms. That's one thing that my finisher was saying that he likes to do, that just making sure that all of the faces of each of the forms, the sides, the top of the form, all of the areas pretty much, you want to make sure that you scrape it, any concrete, clean it. So this is going to make your job a lot easier, so that way when you come back in, and we're going to go over this a couple times as the concrete is drying, and if you do a good job of cleaning it and prepping it, like right here, he's really taking his time making sure he has a nice float there. So once you leave it there, it's going to make your job a lot easier as it dries. So then we're getting down here to the bottom concrete pad. Same thing, you know. One thing we noticed that the concrete right here was pretty level. So what he's doing is he is scraping the surface that is closer to the outer edge. And so he's going to scrape that concrete and he's going to drag it towards the back. That's what you see him doing right there. He's going a little bit below the form board and he's just scraping that concrete on the surface and he's pushing it back. So that way he can get a little bit of a slope, because you always want to make sure that you have between 1.5–2% maximum from the back of the step to the front. So that way any water that goes on it is just going to come out towards the back. Once we did all this prep work right here, just making sure that any holes or high spots are evened out, and we just fill everything in, get it as close as possible. After we do all of this, we're just gonna leave the concrete for a little while. We're gonna wait about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and as it sets, then we're gonna come back and start working the edges. So that's how everything is looking so far. After we gave it the first go around with the float, you can see how everything is looking nice and clean, nice and crisp. All of the steps are there, pretty much ready to go, and we're gonna continue the process. After we waited about 1 hour, then we were able to come back and to do the edging. So that's the 1/2 inch. We typically use a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch edging tool. And so for this process, we're just using the two tools between the edger and also the hand float. So this is pretty straightforward. We're just putting it right in between the form board and the concrete and just gliding it across the surface to make sure we get a nice clean edge. And then any marks that the edger tool makes on the surface, we go ahead and just even it out with the hand float. So we're gonna do this on each of the steps on all 3 sides, basically on either side, on both ends, and then also on the front. And after that, then we waited another 30 minutes up to an hour or so, and we're starting to remove all the nails, and we're going to be able to remove all the form boards. So this process is very critical. You don't want to do it too soon, because if we were to remove all these form boards that are at the face of each step, if we were to remove them too early, then the concrete will just fall and it will fail because it's too wet, it's too fresh. So once you wait a little bit and the concrete kind of sets and it's firm enough, then we can go ahead and just start removing these forms. And that's what they're doing right there. Once we remove the screws that were on each side, then we just pry it with a hammer. And you want to be really careful with this, because it has happened to us before where we pry it and it removes like a chunk of concrete with it. So what we typically do is we will spray like a form oil on it, so that way it's easier to remove like this, and then it will just come out pretty easily. So all we're doing is just prying it at one end, and then it comes loose, and now we have direct access to the entire step. So in our process, and in this case, we're only going to be working each face of the step. We're going to work the top, which is the surface, and the sides we're going to leave it like that. That will be removed, the forms, you know, on either side. It's going to be taken out the following day once they clean the job site. So once you have the area clear enough, then this is where the fun begins. We basically just have our form, we have our hand float, and we're utilizing that tool to even out the surface, and any areas that we find that are a little bit low, we are filling them in with concrete, like you see right there. A lot of these steps, we noticed that near the back edge, they were a little bit low, so we're just bringing in some concrete right there, and we're just pressing it down into the surface with our hand float. And once we do that, we're able to float it a lot easier, and then we can just make sure that it has a nice level from one side to the other, and that it's sloping towards the front basically. And then the face of each step, we're doing the same thing, and then we always run the edger tool as well. The edger, we run that 2 to 3 times throughout the entire process. That's very important as well, because that's going to make sure that you have a really nice clean edge, that it remains. Because we noticed in some of these forms and steps, when we removed that board, that it definitely needed some additional concrete. And then we also noticed a little bit of honeycomb or areas where it was a void. So It's always nice to have a little bit of extra concrete, so that way you can bring it there, fill it in with your hand float, compact it, and then you can just run the edger tool over that so it compresses it and just gives you that good edge. And then from there you can just float the whole surface. So once you float everything, then at the very end we run our hand trowel. So that's what you see right there. He's using the hand trowel on the face, but that's after, you know, we work the entire step. We get everything prepped and smoothened out and make sure everything is good. And once you do that, then you're going to be able to just run the broom across the entire surface. So this is, I mean, it's technically like a work of art. You know, it's not just a matter of like just running scraping the broom across and just, you know, trying to get the texture that way. But you actually have to glide it, like you see right there, at an angle. You don't want to have it like too high. You want to kind of glide it along the surface, like how he's doing it right there at that angle. And that's gonna give you those bristles from the brush. It's gonna create that really beautiful texture. It's not gonna be too rough or too smooth. It's gonna be the right consistency, and it's gonna be very professional and good quality workmanship. So he's basically finessing that little brush and just gliding it across. So you get it from one end and you just move it across in a nice smooth path all the way till you get to the end, and then you just lift it up. And then we always just have a bucket of water, so we try to keep our brush clean. That makes sure that you don't have any of that leftover cream on the brush, and you know, that way it doesn't make any marks or anything like that. So overall, this entire process went very smoothly, other than the fact that our concrete supplier brought really wet, poor, you know, concrete, but we were able to work with that. And at the end of the day, just make sure that we used all the proper finishing techniques and make sure that we provide quality workmanship, so that way we have a really nice product at the very end. So we were very pleased with how everything turned out. In this video, I basically showed you a step-by-step process on how we work, how we poured the concrete, how we work everything, how we basically finish each of the steps, so that way you can obtain quality and professional results. We hope you like this video. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and activate the notification bell, so that way you don't miss out on any future videos that we'll be uploading in the future. For now, that's pretty much it on this side of the video. We're just gonna be wrapping up right here, doing the final touches on the broom finish. We're just working down here at the very lowest part, and just gonna wrap up those details down there. And this is the results here on how everything turned out. May God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video.